Welcome to Spirited Straight Talk, the podcast to help you thrive with the help of spirit. I'm Deb Shepard, psychic medium, spiritual teacher, and author. Each week, I bring new insights to help you heal from loss, connect with spirit, and turn setbacks into triumphs. So let's get started. There's a belief out there that the ego is bad or wrong, or we should dismiss it or not have it. And for me, my opinion is there's nothing bad about us unless we use it to harm or control others. And I also believe that our entire soul, being, body is needed in order to learn the lessons that we are here to learn in this lifetime. So all parts of us, all aspects of us are needed in order to address the situations that we came to figure out.
You know what image just popped into my mind?
Which?
The movie The Soul.
Yeah.
Soul by Pixar.
Yes.
And you remember in the movie how they had the stickers or the things they were assigned and the little soul bubble was floating around.
Yes.
And then I'm an egotistical megalomaniac.
And they
assigned. I know. But they chose what they were assigned for whatever reason in their lessons when they were coming down to earth in that movie. And that's the image just popped into my mind when you said that.
And I totally agree. And as you're saying, I can see that part of it. If you haven't seen the movie, it is a Pixar movie. It's a cartoon, but it is well written. And take it from the perspective of what we came here to learn in this lifetime and what we go through, because it's what you and I believe.
It's like they chose their personality traits that they were bringing with them for their experience on Earth.
And for the ones that are teachers have those personalities as well. And I think that molds us to have a belief system when we have experiences with other individuals that have a large ego. Mm-hmm. So sometimes we play small because we feel that they overpower or it's very negative influence. And it can be. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it's like anything in our world, how we think, what we do with our bodies is an influence, but it doesn't mean it's negative unless we use it for a negative to take away power from others. And that's what this is about today. Is the ego a positive or negative energy or personality trait? Mm-hmm. And I think that it's important to have an ego to accomplish the things that we came to learn in just everyday life.
I mean, but in that case too, if you chose, if we really can choose some of our personality traits before we incarnate, it makes perfect sense. I have somebody in my head as I'm thinking about this, but it does make perfect sense, right?
I've always said in all the teachings and the programs is we can't control or change or teach somebody else. It's about how we respond. And when we have people in our life that are full of ego or lack of ego, which can also affect how we respond to people, when we look at that, we have a human experience versus understanding, is there a spiritual lesson involved? And I think for most of us, our first knee-jerk reaction is how we feel versus sitting down and meditating or contemplating or journaling and saying, what am I learning from this? Yeah. And the ego is a big piece because I want to be right, especially when someone's wronged us or they've tried to control or do negative things to us. We want to have justification and we want to win. Yeah. And that's, I think, the ego.
Oh, that's where I'm at right now. Gosh darn it. I want to say another word, but I said, gosh darn it.
And I think the ego, as it's defined, as well as in the dictionary, it's about our self-esteem or self-importance. Mm-hmm. And I do believe that self-esteem is important. When we look at an accomplishment, how we feel, we should have pride in our accomplishments. And I think also having a strong ego means when we have failures, we can pick ourselves up versus always going down that spiral and thinking, I'm never good enough, nothing's ever going to happen. Mm-hmm. And I think it creates, with a lack of ego, it creates a fear of trying anything new or outside that is our comfort zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in the mentoring program, that's what we talk a lot about where's the fears. And it's always of the past where we've been hurt and how the ego has been, let's say, bruised or damaged or hurt. And so we try to play it safe because we know how painful that can be, especially with the children, if you're a child raised with a very narcissistic parent or someone that was very controlling, that can affect how you feel about yourself throughout your life.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Or the fact that your success was through them. They wanted you to be successful because it fed their ego.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's that balancing act around where people are like, okay, well, what does this really look like?
Yeah.
And I think that comes into the confidence. I think confidence and self-esteem and knowing who you are, that's where the good ego is.
Yeah.
And we talk about the yin and yang, the balance, and it is about everything being balanced versus one-sided.
Mm-hmm.
And I think another thing that just came to mind is sometimes when people are having a really big ego, is it that they don't have self-confidence?
Yes.
So
that's what came to my mind too, is a lack of self-confidence that makes their need to overpower, which looks like ego, but it's really a need to overpower to feed their ego, right? Their unhealthy ego.
Yeah. And when you look at the moon and the sun, they don't say, I'm bigger or smaller, or I shine bigger, or I'm darker than you. There's no competition. But we do that within ourselves when there's a lack of it. And I know that there are times when I've had failures, and boy, you've got to really figure out how to rebuild that.
Yeah.
But when we have success, sometimes we don't hold on to the success very long because we think, then what's the next time? What else do we do? And how do we keep feeding that ego or confidence?
Yeah. So is ego in the positive sense of the word more aligned with the self-confidence in the positive sense of the word? Because I know in what I've been learning, because I'm studying a little bit of Buddhism, that you're trying to remove your ego to connect with the divine. So it might be two very different definitions of ego. Like I know ego is like an earthbound
personality,
keeping you within yourself and keeping you from realizing that there's more out there. Like there's that ego as well. Like you're stuck in your ego and you can't let go of what you think is to see what truly is.
But when you talk about this, it reminds me of faith or religion or someone's higher consciousness, whatever you want to call it. And I was raised in a very strict religious home, and the ego part of their faith was that they were right no matter what and no one else was.
Oh, yes.
So when you talk about the Buddhist faith, the Buddhist says, this is an earthbound connection to ego. Can you pull it aside to connect with the higher self?
Yes.
Which I love.
Yes.
Because I do believe that part of our healthy side, our spiritual side, or soul side is how do we connect with the belief system of our guides, our universe, whatever you believe in. But belief systems can have such an ego where we are not willing to listen to other people's viewpoints. I mean, we have wars, we have conflict because of
ego.
faith. Yeah, ego.
Yeah, it is. I believe it is ego, and it's I'm right and you're wrong.
Instead of just saying, I honor what you believe, can you honor what I believe? To me, that would be the healthy, balanced ego.
Right. Which kind of brings me to a discussion we had in your solution.
That was a class. Several classes.
Yeah, about ego. And one of the questions was, because you connect with the other side, you connect with loved ones. Do you feel there's ego when you connect with loved ones or when you connect with your guides?
Let me say this in two answers. With guides, absolutely not. Our guides, angelic beings, whatever you want to call that on the other side, I think there's different layers to that. I never feel an ego. Like they're not attached to giving me a message and go, you have to do that. And if you don't, you're going to know I was right and you were wrong.
Right.
There isn't that sort of battle. I can feel them. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I don't want to do it. And you know me, I can procrastinate or push back and ignore it until I'm ready. But I never have ever felt one of my guides saying, well, you're going to be disappointing yourself if you don't. Never. When it comes to loved ones, there is a different energy or vibration. It's not so much the ego, but I still feel a lot of personality about who they were when they were walking the earth plane and what they want to say to their loved ones. But it's being very clear. We are still attached to the ego. Like, do they feel bad for what they did? Are they sorry? Do they forgive me? We have the ego that we desire a message from them.
Mm-hmm.
That's our ego. And they come through going, yeah, I'm so sorry. I mean, it isn't the same ego, but we have it. So as you ask me that, I can see them trying to satisfy our ego,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not to satisfy theirs. Like, they're not attached to the things that are here anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I still feel like they're still evolving,
Mm-hmm.
and there's probably still a ton of work that they're doing on the other side.
So it's not as if they've reached enlightenment.
No.
Because
just because
if
they're over
that
there
was the case, they would become an ascended master.
Guide, some other form.
So they're still learning.
They're still learning. So it's not the ego they had here,
mm-hmm.
but we definitely have the ego of the answers we want to have.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we want to have that clarity. We want to know that they feel bad, or do they forgive us, or whatever our situation was with them. And for many of us, individuals, hearing from your loved ones, it still takes a lot of healing, because our ego feels like there was so much hurt when they were here. Even if they get that message, they're still in that trauma and turmoil, trying to balance that ego. Like, well, they should have done this, or I should have done that. So there's that mind game that we play with ourselves.
Yeah,
for sure.
So
I think the other part too is understanding here, because I wrote down some things that we use in the class as well. How do we know if we have an oversized ego or not enough? And I think it's really easy to recognize a person that doesn't have the confidence or the ego. There's so much fear. They have like, well, I can't do that, or, what are people going to think? They're worried about judgment and failure and things like that keeps them from taking the risks that we are here to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Oversized egos, I think sometimes we don't see ourselves in the mirror. It was interesting when we were started to go through these. Some of the students go, well, maybe my ego is oversized, or maybe there is something I can look at. But I think that's a work in progress for everyone, including myself. I can have a really good ego about certain things. And, in other parts, I'm like, I can't do that. It always keeps me humble to part of it. But some of the oversized ego was always wanted to be right. The thing is always wanting to be right, always wanting more, have to win, require that constant recognition, one-sided conversations. And we've seen those where there's always someone that just, you share something and they're almost competing with you. I'm like, I didn't know this was a competition. Is there a winning person? Is there an award at the end? Lack of empathy.
Yeah.
And I've seen this a lot with, there's a story going on or something happening, and they don't have the empathy to say, well, they got themselves in this situation.
Yeah.
So there's no empathy, and they just feel like they never do anything wrong.
Right.
And we've certainly met people like that.
Just a few.
And I think for some of us, including us over time, we eliminate our relationships, or we have less time for those relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you have to create boundaries when somebody, because that's also an energy vampire.
Yes.
At the same time, somebody who is very focused on self overly and has no empathy also can just suck your energy dry.
It always amazes me too when you were for me, not you personally, Dana, but you'll share something and they immediately have to give you advice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'm not done telling you the story, and I wasn't looking for advice.
Our new comeback is, did your ego tell you that you had to say that?
What would you say? That would be fun.
So that's all the kind of the negative, like a negative part, or the overpowering oversized ego. I keep thinking the oversized ego is like going to McDonald's and getting the 7-Eleven and getting the big gulp. It's like, do you really need that much soda? That's the ego that I'm seeing. So the lessons that we all get out of this is really going back to the spirituality aspect, because your philosophy is that we come here to learn these lessons, and you've communicated with guides and downloaded tons of information. So when you go into this, somebody having an oversized ego and the lessons that are provided by that. It's the people around that particular person that are all learning the lessons attached to them having
Correct.
this type of personality.
Correct. So I feel like that's our teacher. And people, what do you mean? I think I know more than them. I'm like, no, it's because they're the challenging one. They're not going to change. They're not going to shift their ego to satisfy you.
God, that's hard.
I know.
I'm having a really difficult time with this right now.
As my father would say, damn it to hell, right? And it is hard because you look at them thinking they don't have a sense of reality as well. They're the center of the universe, of everyone's universe, or they think. And many times they have an important role in our life. They could be a boss, a parent, a partner, an in-law of some form that is in our lives that we can't wiggle away from very much. And so they come in and you can feel it before they even come into the room or into your home or into wherever you're going to meet with them. And you could feel your body already sort of, like your spine coming up and you wanting to defend yourself. And is that a negative or a positive ego? I think we go into that warrior mode. I don't want this person to make me feel lesser than. And it takes a while to recover.
Yeah.
And sometimes I know in our recent situation, it feels like it's days where we call them the E-coins, energy coins, that they keep taking our energy coins. And that's our lesson. Why is our ego allowing that person to overpower? Because they usually walk away and go, I'm fine.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And they feel like they're great.
They don't understand the tornado they're causing. And they just walk away going, well, that's your problem.
Yeah.
And you're like,
wait a minute,
trying to manage the wake of the crap they have just unloaded.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't think they walk in with the intention, I'm here to make you feel bad. Their intention is to keep their ego filled.
Yeah.
They want to continue filling up their ego. So they walk in, they're the vampires taking the energy, walking away because we gave it to them. And we're trying to find, how do we fill up
what
our
they took.
emotion again?
Yeah.
Because we do give it away because we get, furious. We get frustrated with what this individual or individuals have done.
We go bowling.
We throw a 12, is it 12 or 13 pounds?
It's 12. Yeah.
12-pound bowling ball.
No, it's 13.
Yeah. Okay. 13 there's my ego. How big is your ball? Your bowling ball. And we throw that, sucker down the bowling alley because it really helps to release some of the energy. And that's what we always encourage is, how do you shake off that energy?
Yeah.
And you feel like you've been attacked. I always give the example of when we have that anxiety of thinking of the lion that is chasing the zebra and the zebra gets away and the zebra shakes off that adrenaline because it was, fight or flight.
Yep.
And so that's what we can do too. So when we feel that person with that oversized ego, that big gulp from 7-Eleven, we are prepared beforehand, and then what are you going to do afterwards? And part of it is getting yourself centered to say, I'm not going to let them trigger me. I'm not going to let them rip the Band-Aid off. And they seem to be very good at this. I mean, they're very good. They're articulate. They're and smart. So this is the oversized ego that are your teachers that do show up in your life.
Okay.
The other one is the lack of healthy ego. And I feel like the oversized ego search for these individuals.
Oh, yeah.
It's sort of like
they find somebody who's really vulnerable.
Yeah, absolutely. So we think about, I keep thinking about the shark trying to look for the fish. It's how they're looking for their next meal because they do feed off of it a lot. So
is that a narcissist?
Well, I think that's certainly in the category. I don't think all narcissists are going to have an oversized ego, but I don't feel that the label of a narcissist means oversized ego. I think there can be completely different because narcissists are mentally ill. I don't think an oversized ego is and always a mental ill. I think it might be a cover up, or it could be that's how they're wired. Like you said, they came down with that personality. There are things that's happened that they've overcompensated. Those type of things.
Okay,
could be
got it.
And then the other part, and I think it has to do with your environment growing up and your environment where you live and things like that too. But the lack of healthy ego is you were constantly And do you worry about what other people may think about you? And lots of fear. Are you worried about making a wrong decision? Do you lack trust in yourself? Do you replay situations over and over, judging yourself? You want to control things so you feel safe, never feeling good enough. These are just some examples. And if you get 3 of those, let's find a way to help strengthen that ego. And I think people think being humble means that's a healthy ego. I think the lack of ego and being humble are not in the same category. I think being humble, you can have a strong, healthy ego and still be humble.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I
have a confidence and still have empathy and
compassion.
And
I feel like I have a strong ego to say, here's a room of 300 people. I can talk to your relatives who have crossed over. I think that's a healthy ego. I'm humble because I know I'm only of service and I'm only a vessel, and it could change any time.
Right.
You know, I consider myself humbled in the fact that I get to do this.
Yeah.
So I think they're 2 different things.
Yeah.
You can have both of them. And we did talk about over-the-top narcissistic personality.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to keep those separate. So if you think you have a person that's a narcissist, it doesn't mean that a person that has a strong ego is a narcissist.
Okay.
I think they are 2 different things. And how do we change this?
How do we balance it?
How do we balance it?
Yeah.
I think, first of all, recognizing when you have a conversation with somebody, are you trying to correct them? Are you trying to up one? Are you letting them share? You know, what is it that you do in conversations? Are you always trying to toot your horn and give your resume and let everyone know how great you are? Or are you letting people to find out on their own? I think if there's a lack of one, there's so many ways to build your self-confidence. And I think we should talk about a few of those things, don't you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think having, a lack of ego or struggling, I think there's a lot of people that struggle with how to rebuild their ego or how to balance it. If you feel like you might be one of those people that you overpower, how do you bring it down a notch? How do you really look objectively at that?
One of the things you said earlier this year, and we've shared it on the podcast and in our classes, is do you listen to respond or do you listen to understand? And I think if you can use that mantra in your life, and I struggle because sometimes when I'm especially teaching a class and someone's sharing something, I have guides coming through and I want to interrupt. And I have learned to write my notes to come back. And everyone knows I'm biting at the bit, wanting to share, say no, but taking my time to let people finish because it's important for people to be heard.
Yes.
And the more that you hear other individuals, that will also allow people to hear you because we want to be heard.
Right.
I think that's a big one.
Yeah.
What just came to mind, we talked about asking for help during one of the classes, is your ego. If your ego's too big, does that mean, or too oversized, or whatever you want to call it, that you're not willing to ask for help? And what we teach in
solution,
or even spirituality, how to manifest, how to ask the universe to support you, how to hear from your guides, hear from your loved ones. Part of that is asking. And that to me is a good balanced ego, is being willing to ask. Because that's hard for most of us. We feel shame and guilt that we shouldn't ask for help.
Yeah.
And that was a big topic here a couple of weeks ago in our class. So if you are a lack of ego, I want to go there, first of all, is that positive talk, which we do a lot in the program. Do things that's going to give you confidence. And it could be learning a new language, raising money for something important, taking classes. For me, it was one of the things was getting my black belt in Taekwondo because I'm so not an athlete, as you well know. You want me to go for a walk? I'm like, God, I'm in pain already thinking about it. But that helped me to really do some things that I needed to do in my life. And we both talk about, well, even our bowling, when we do really well. I mean, there's a feeling of, woo, it's not going to change your life, but it does change how you feel about yourself for the day. So I think that's
you feel good when you accomplish something. So my goal is just to try to get a good score in bowling someday.
Being around positive people, I think what can happen is if we hang around the same people is part of our lack of confidence or ego because of the people that we're around.
Mm-hmm.
If we're around individuals that are constantly questioning us, doubting us, putting us down, change your environment pretty quickly so your soul can be fed as well.
Yeah.
Doing things for yourself without guilt, which is a big thing. Finding humor. Well, I like to tell my dad jokes.
Mm-hmm.
Not that anyone laughs, but they just kind of...
Everybody laughs.
Shake their head.
I shake my head. Everyone else laughs.
And write things about yourself that are good. I think it's really hard for us to see the good in ourselves because what we think about so often is what we're not doing, what hasn't gotten done, our to-do list, and we feel guilt if we're not willing. If those things haven't been accomplished, how can we say good things about ourselves when things are not completed and we have made mistakes in the past? And then I think the big one is see your past as opportunities to learn versus being hard on yourself. You always say this great thing. It's a teaching moment.
I say that
all the time. So Dane and I will have an experience, and we've shared some of these stories on our podcast, and you'll go, a teaching moment. And we do. We turn it around and said, this is the lesson. This is what we learn. And instead of beating ourselves up about it, we take it forward and go, this can be used to help other people, as well as what we can do differently next time. Because you and I believe that our purpose in being on this planet is to learn what we suck at, not the good things. And so
you taught me that.
Yeah, what we're good at is what we can give back to the planet. We can make money on. We can, benefit all of ourselves. But when it comes to what our life purpose is, it's what we're not good at. And so looking at your past, thinking that as an education system to help support your ego and go, this is what I just got through. How do I get through this?
Yeah.
What are you thinking, girl?
I think yes.
Good.
Yes.
Okay. So write some of these things down. Where do you think your ego is? Pay attention, observe, read the room. I always say read the room. If you read the room to figure out how people are responding to you, are they crossing their arms? Are they turning away? Are they not responding to what you're saying? Maybe your head's a little bit too big. You need to rethink your ego. If you have a lack of it, start rebuilding that muscle because you have every right to have confidence, to feel self-assured, to be able to receive the things that you desire. If you want to manifest great things in your life, that confidence has to be there that you desire and what you deserve, or you deserve what you desire.
Right.
So all of those things, there's nothing wrong with having a healthy, balanced ego. Okay? Absolutely. So what we want to remind everybody is we have an upcoming class called Manifesting. So this ties right into what's coming up here. So check your emails, check my website, debshepard.com, because this is going to be an entire day class on manifesting.
It's a 33-day program that you'll follow along and with multiple touch points, but you're teaching for a full day on this class.
Yeah. So sign up for that. Help you support your ego and manifest everything you desire. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope it inspired you. If you enjoyed our conversation, make sure you subscribe so that you get notified of new episodes. And let's get connected. Visit debshepard.com for more insights, support, workshops, and to book a session with me. And finally, always remember, your loved ones in spirit are just a thought away. Even though they're on the other side, they're always by your side.